Willow Creek Estates looked like paradise on the surface. White picket fences gleaming under Colorado's sun. Lawns clipped to HOA perfection. Kids riding bikes without a care. But everyone knew the truth. Karen Whitaker ran this place like her personal kingdom. HOA president for 8 years straight. She patrolled in her white golf cart with that plastic smile, clipboard in hand, ready to fine you for a blade of grass 1 millimeter too tall or a flagpole half an inch off spec. It's for the property values, darlings. She'd coo at every monthly meeting, voice dripping honey while her eyes calculated your next violation. And the neighbors ate it up, especially my daughter Sarah. I'm Bill Reynolds, widower, former financial guy whose business failed after my wife passed in 2016. At least that's the story I let everyone believe. I live in the same gray rancher on Maple Lane I've had forever. 2009 Civic in the driveway with 180,000 miles and duct tape on the seat. Goodwill clothes, store brand groceries. Sarah and her husband Mike bought the bigger colonial 2 streets over with little Lily, my granddaughter. On paper, I'm the broke dad who can't keep up. In reality, I've been the invisible bank behind every single miracle Karen claimed credit for. 7 years ago, right after the cancer took my wife, I set up the Willow Creek Enhancement Fund anonymously through a shell company. Every time Karen stood at the podium bragging about my personal donations that kept the pool sparkling, the playground rebuilt, the roads repaved without raising dues, those dollars came from me. $847,000 total. Wedding fund for Sarah and Mike? Mine. Down payment help? Mine. Lily's private tutoring and the summer camp Karen called my community scholarship program? All mine, funneled through the fund so nobody would know. I lived like a pauper so the neighborhood could stay shiny and Sarah could stay proud of the woman who saved Willow Creek. Last Christmas, the annual neighborhood card arrived in my mailbox. Glossy, professional, everyone smiling in coordinated outfits. Sarah, Mike, Lily, and right in the center, Karen Whitaker in her red blazer, arms around my granddaughter like she was blood. I wasn't even in the frame. 3rd year running. When I asked Sarah about it, she gave me that pitying look. Dad, Karen paid for the photographer. It just made sense to feature the person who keeps everything together. Karen paid with money I'd wired into the fund 2 weeks earlier. The irony tasted like cheap coffee. Then came Lily's middle school graduation last month. I sat in the back row of the auditorium while Karen gave the special thanks speech about investing in our children's futures. Lily ran straight to her first big hug, squealing, Auntie Karen, then noticed me and offered a polite, "Hi, Grandpa Bill." Polite, like I was the weird uncle they tolerated. After the ceremony, the whole group headed to the club for steaks. Karen's treat, of course. Sarah pulled me aside in the parking lot. "Dad, I know money's tight for you. We totally understand if you skip it." I smiled, said I had other plans, and watched them drive off in Karen's shiny SUV while I sat in my taped-up Civic eating a gas station sandwich. I could have bought the entire steakhouse that night, but I needed to see how deep the lie had sunk. It had sunk to the bottom. Lily's Instagram was nothing but grateful for any Karen posts. Photos of the new basketball court Karen personally funded, the holiday lights display she made possible, even the 4th of July fireworks she claimed came from her generous heart. Not one mention of Grandpa Bill. I kept a leather ledger locked in my nightstand with every transfer date and amount. March 15th, 2017, $125,000 for the community pavilion. June 10th, 2018, $89,000 road resurfacing. September 5th, 2019, $45,000 playground upgrade. The list went on. Karen had never put in a dime. But every HOA newsletter, every speech, every thank you card from residents carried her name in gold ink. Why did I let go on? Same reason any father does stupid things. Fear of losing my daughter completely. After my wife died, Sarah started pulling away. She saw me scraping by on ramen and thought I was embarrassed. Karen swooped in like the fairy godmother, waving my late dues out of the goodness of her heart, while I secretly replenished the fund. Sarah's face lit up talking about how lucky we are to have Karen watching over us. So I stayed quiet. At least my girl was happy. At least she had a community she could be proud of. But the silence was eating me alive. 3 weeks ago, Lily asked Sarah why I never came to block parties anymore. Grandpa Bill is going through a hard time, Sarah explained in that soft voice people use for charity cases. Sometimes when folks don't have much, they feel uncomfortable. I was standing in the grocery aisle holding generic soup when I overheard Sarah telling a stranger, "My dad kind of checked out after Mom passed, thank God for Karen. She's basically kept our whole street afloat." I stood there frozen, kin in hand, listening to my own daughter call me a failure while praising the woman whose empire I bankrolled. That night, I called the fund administrator and requested the full 7-year report. The number stared back, $847,000. Nearly $1 million propping up Karen's sane act while I played the neighborhood ghost. Worse, Lily was starting to mirror it. Last month, she asked Sarah if we should start a little help fund for Grandpa Bill's bills. My 15-year-old granddaughter worrying about my finances while living in a house whose down payment I covered. If I stayed silent any longer, I'd disappear completely, become the sad old man they invited out of guilt, then stopped inviting altogether. I had a choice: keep funding Karen's throne while fading from my family's story, or blow the whole thing open and risk shattering the happiness I paid for. Either way, I was losing Sarah. The only question was whether I'd go down as the broke loser or the man who finally told the truth. That's when fate handed me a $2 scratch-off and the perfect stage to end the charade. Neighborhood Appreciation Day fell on a perfect June Saturday, Father's Day weekend, ironic as hell. Sarah invited the whole street to their backyard barbecue, but of course the guest of honor was Karen Whitaker. I showed up with a bottle of decent wine in a plain brown bag. Karen was already holding court under the patio umbrella in her $1,500 linen blazer, lecturing Mike about smart community investments. Sarah appeared with a tray of envelopes. Time for appreciation gifts. She handed Karen the thick one first. Karen opened it slowly, performing surprise like she'd rehearsed it. A 14-day Mediterranean cruise? Oh my goodness, this is too much. Sarah hugged her tight. You've done so much for all of us, waiving fines, upgrading the pool, keeping Willow Creek perfect. It's the least we could do. I sat there calculating. Royal Caribbean Suite, peak season, minimum $25,000. Money that had quietly left my fund 2 weeks earlier. Then Sarah turned to me with the world's smallest envelope. And Dad, this is for you. A single $2 scratch-off lottery ticket. The symbolism hit like a fine for improper mulch. The woman who stole my generosity gets a luxury cruise. The man who actually paid gets gas station impulse buy. I know it's not much, Sarah said quickly, but maybe it'll be fun. Karen couldn't resist twisting the knife. Well, Bill, you never know. Lightning might strike for the little guy. The way she said it, all gracious pity, like she was tossing crumbs to the peasant. I smiled quietly. Sometimes lightning strikes exactly when it's supposed to. Something in my voice made my glance up. Karen moved on, waving the cruise brochure. Santorini in July. I've always dreamed of it. Sarah beamed. You deserve it after everything you've done for the neighborhood. That's when I decided to test the waters. Karen, remind me, when exactly did you start personally funding the enhancement projects? Her smile flickered. Oh, family or neighborhood. Helps neighborhood, but I don't keep exact dates. Interesting, I said, pulling out my phone. I do. I read the first line aloud. March 15th, 2017, $125,000 into the Willow Creek Enhancement Fund for the pavilion. Mike frowned. How do you know the exact amount? I kept going. June 10th, 2018, $89,000 road resurfacing. September 5th, 2019, $45,000 playground upgrade. Sarah was staring now. Dad, why would you know those numbers? Karen's face had gone the color of her overpriced blazer lining. Bill, I'm not sure what you're implying. I looked straight at her. Should I tell them? Or would you prefer to? 10 seconds of dead silence. Karen forced a laugh. I have no idea what Bill's talking about. I scratched the ticket right there at the table with my car key. First symbol, $50,000. Second, $50,000. Third, $50,000. Then the jackpot line, $55 million. I held it up calmly. Well, would you look at that? Sarah gasped. Mike stared. Lily came running from the swing set. Karen looked like she might faint into the potato salad. $55 million, I said softly. Interesting timing, isn't it, Karen? The backyard froze. Karen recovered first, of course, she always did. Bill, that's wonderful. What incredible luck. But her eyes were calculating damage control. $55 million meant questions. It meant the broke rule breaker could suddenly afford lawyers, audits, the truth. Sarah was still staring at the ticket like it might vanish. Dad, you have to verify this right away. I will, I said. But first let's finish our little chat about neighborhood finances. I pulled up another screen. Karen, ever heard of Alpine Holdings LLC? Her face went white. It owns 40% of the management company that oversees the enhancement fund. Mike nearly dropped his burger. That's the company that handles our HOA accounts. I know, I said, because I'm a majority shareholder. Karen stood so fast her chair scraped. This is ridiculous. Bill, you're embarrassing yourself. I kept my voice level. Am I? Because I have 7 years of bank records showing every single deposit into that fund came from my accounts, not yours. Sarah looked between us, confused. I don't understand. The enhancement fund, I explained calmly, the one Karen has taken credit for managing and funding for 7 years. Every upgrade, every wave fine, every generous gesture, my money. Karen backed toward the house. Bill, I think you're confused. I held up the phone again. Interesting. Alpine Holdings has been used as collateral for several personal loans. Home equity lines, credit extensions, totaling over $340,000. All secured by someone claiming to be the fund's primary source. Karen's hands were shaking. Mike heard it too when her phone rang and she answered in a whisper, No, I can't make the payment this week. I let the silence stretch, then planted the final seed. Karen, you were just lecturing about generational wealth. What would you say the fund's liquid assets are worth right now? She couldn't answer honestly because the answer was negative. She was broke, propped up by the illusion my money created. I scratched another section of the ticket. A smaller prize underneath, $10,000. You know what? I said, standing slowly. I think I'll cash this in tomorrow, right after my meeting at the management company. The backyard had gone from backyard barbecue to battlefield. Karen's empire was wobbling, and everyone could feel the first cracks. Monday morning, I walked into the management company offices wearing the $3,000 suit I'd kept in storage for 15 years. Funny how expensive clothes look the same whether you bought them yesterday or hid them in a closet. Mike was waiting in the lobby, face a mix of confusion and dread. Bill, Mr. Reynolds, what should I call you? Bill's fine. You're still my son-in-law. Are you really the Alpine Holdings client? Let's go to the conference room. Everyone should hear this together. The senior team was assembled, 3 VPs, the president, coffee, and pastries laid out like it was a normal meeting. It wasn't. I placed a thick folder on the table. We need to discuss irregularities in the Willow Creek Enhancement Fund. The president leaned forward. What kind? The kind where someone has been taking credit for transactions they never initiated. I spread out 7 years of highlighted bank records. Every deposit traced back to my shell company. Every authorization signed through intermediaries. One VP, Sarah Chun, no relation, cross-referenced her laptop. Mr. Reynolds, according to our records, Alpine Holdings has been our largest private client for 8 years. 40% ownership since 2016. Correct. Mike's face was pale. You've been our biggest client this whole time. Your biggest client's representative, I corrected. The president was connecting dots. Are you saying Karen Whitaker has been misrepresenting the source of these funds? I'm saying she's taken credit for nearly $1 million in transfers she didn't make. Shin pulled up another screen. There's more. MS. Whitaker has been using these accounts as collateral for personal loans. That got everyone's attention. What kind? I asked, though I already knew. Home equity lines, business loans, credit extensions. She's been representing herself as the fund's sole benefactor to secure them. Mike dropped the papers. She's been borrowing against Dad's money? $340,000 outstanding, Chun confirmed. All secured by her claim that she's the enhancement fund's primary source. I let it sink in. Karen hadn't just stolen credit. She'd used my generosity as collateral to keep her failing real estate side hustle afloat. The president checked his notes. She actually scheduled a meeting for this afternoon to discuss liquidating fund assets for a major community expense. Let me guess, I said. The Mediterranean cruise. He nodded. How did you know? Because I know exactly what Karen's been planning. She was going to drain the fund to pay for her own vacation, then claim it was another generous community gift. Mike looked sick. She was going to steal Dad's money for her cruise. I pulled out my phone and dialed Karen on speaker. Bill. Her voice was already nervous. I'm here at the management company with Mike and the senior team. We're reviewing the enhancement fund accounts. Silence. Karen, would you like to explain to everyone how you've been representing yourself as the fund's funding source? I don't know what you're talking about. Chun leaned in. MS. Whitaker, this is Sarah Chun. We have records of your loan applications claiming ownership of fund assets totaling $847,000. Karen's voice cracked. There's been a misunderstanding. I pressed. Because I have 7 years of bank records showing every transfer came from my accounts. I also have recordings of conversations where you acknowledged knowing the true source. That wasn't entirely true, but her reaction told me everything. You've been recording us? Bingo. She just admitted she knew. The president looked stunned. MS. Whitaker, are you acknowledging the funds didn't originate from your accounts? Karen's voice shrank. Bill, we should discuss this privately. No, I said. We should discuss it publicly, because you've spent 7 years publicly taking credit for my money. Mike stared at the phone like it was radioactive. Karen, is this true? Mike, it's complicated. It's not complicated. I cut in. She knew I was funding the neighborhood. She let me live like a pauper while she took the glory, then borrowed hundreds of thousands against that fake credit. The president cleared his throat. MS. Whitaker, we need you here within the hour or we'll contact law enforcement. Karen hung up. Mike looked at the table. She's going to lose everything. That depends, I said, on whether she's willing to tell the truth. I stood, gathered my papers. Gentlemen, I'll be transferring the fund accounts to a more transparent structure. Mike, you'll continue managing the portfolio under new guidelines. I headed for the door, then turned. Oh, and that cruise Karen was planning? Canceled. The card she was going to use is maxed out, and the bank just froze her accounts. That evening, Sarah called, voice tight. Dad, we need to talk. Karen wants a meeting at the clubhouse. Says it's neutral ground. Neutral ground? The Willow Creek Country Club where Karen had spent 3 years bragging about her contributions to anyone who'd listen. Perfect. I arrived at 7 p.m. in the same suit. The hostess knew Karen, of course. MS. Whitaker's party. This way. The private dining room was packed. Not just Sarah, Mike, and Lily, but half the HOA board, the club president, even the local banker and Sarah's business partner. Karen had assembled her audience, ready to control the narrative one last time. Bill, she stood, extending a manicured hand. Thank you for coming. I didn't shake it. The room was tense. Everyone sensed this wasn't a normal meeting. Karen raised her wine glass. I wanted to gather our closest neighbors to address some misunderstandings. The club president smiled warmly. Karen, you don't need to explain anything. We all know how generous you've been. Actually, I said, that's exactly what we need to discuss. Karen's smile faltered. I opened my leather portfolio on the table. Karen, would you like to tell everyone how much money you've actually contributed to the enhancement fund? Bill, I don't think this is the place. You chose the audience. I stood, addressing the room like a presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, for 7 years, Karen Whitaker has accepted credit for financial gifts totaling $847,000. Playground upgrades, road work, pool renovation, event funding. All of it funneled through the enhancement fund. Sarah's business partner looked impressed. Karen, you never mentioned the amounts were so substantial. Because Karen never wrote those checks. The room went quiet. I placed the first document down, bank records, every transfer from my shell company. Then the corporate registration, sole owner, William Reynolds. The club president frowned. I don't understand. It means every dollar Karen has taken credit for came from my accounts. Not one penny from hers. The banker was already studying the papers. These are legitimate. 7 years, $847,000. Mike spoke up, voice hollow. Tell them about the loans, Karen. Her face went white. Mike, that's not. Tell them about the $340,000 in loans you secured using Bill's money as collateral. The club president straightened. Karen, is this true? There's been a misunderstanding. No, a misunderstanding. I placed the loan applications, signed, notarized, claiming she controlled the fund assets. The banker whistled. These are serious misrepresentations. Lily's small voice cut through. Auntie Karen, you didn't really pay for my playground? Karen couldn't look at her. Lily, it's complicated. It's not complicated, I said gently. She's been taking credit for gifts she didn't give. Sarah stared at the documents. Dad, this is real. You've been funding everything. Every major upgrade for 7 years. But I live in that tiny house because I chose to, because I wanted to see if the neighborhood would still love me without the money. The room was silent except for papers rustling. The club president looked at Karen with fresh disappointment. How could you let Bill live like that while taking credit for his generosity? Karen tried one last desperate play. Everyone, please. Bill's been living modestly by choice. He has significant assets. I have $12 million in liquid assets, I said simply. I've had it the entire time. Plus the $55 million from yesterday's lottery. $67 million total, give or take. The banker nearly choked on his wine. The club president stared at Karen. You knew Bill had this wealth. Karen couldn't deny it anymore. I pulled out my phone. Karen, should I play the conversation from 3 weeks ago where you admitted you knew the money wasn't yours? Bill, please. The one where you said, quote, I know where the money really comes from, but the neighborhood doesn't need to know that. Lily burst into tears. Auntie Karen, you lied to us. Mike put his arm around her. It's okay. No, it's not. Lily stood, facing Karen. You let us think Grandpa Bill was poor. You let us feel sorry for him. The social dynamics had flipped. The respected HOA queen was now the exposed fraud. The quiet grandfather was the secret benefactor. The club president stood. Karen, I think you need legal counsel. This is no longer just a neighborhood matter. The banker was already on his phone. I need to call our fraud department immediately. Sarah was crying. Dad, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I know you didn't. That was the point. Karen made one final attempt. Bill, we can fix this. I could pay back the loans. With what money, Karen? Your side business failed 3 years ago. You've been living off credit cards and home equity lines. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. The Mediterranean cruise you were supposed to take next month? The credit card is maxed out. The account is frozen. Karen sank in her chair, defeated. The club president was already making notes. Karen, you need to understand the gravity. Financial fraud, misrepresentation of assets, felony territory. I spoke quietly. Unless Karen is willing to make this right. Every head turned. Public acknowledgement of the truth, full repayment of the fraudulent loans, and a formal apology to the neighborhood she deceived. Mike asked, and if she doesn't, I looked straight at Karen. Then tomorrow morning, I file criminal complaints for fraud, identity theft, and grand larceny. Karen knew she was finished. Her board friends now knew the truth. Her reputation was toast. Her social circle had witnessed the collapse. Bill, she whispered, what exactly do you want? I want my daughter to know who really cared for this neighborhood. I want my granddaughter to know who her real benefactor is. And I want you to understand that stealing credit for another man's love was the cruelest theft of all. Lily walked over and took my hand. I'm sorry, Grandpa Bill. I should have known. How could you? I hid it from everyone. But why? I looked around the room. Because I wanted to see if you'd love me for who I am, not what I could give. Sarah cried harder. We do love you, Dad. We always have, even when we thought you were broke. Especially then. For the first time in 7 years, I felt like a father again. 24 hours later, Karen sat across from me in the attorney's office, hands shaking as she signed the papers that would dismantle her kingdom. The attorney, David Brennan, laid out the terms clearly. Full restitution of the fraudulent loans, public acknowledgement in the HOA newsletter and local business journal, transfer of all remaining enhancement fund authority to me, and a legal gag order preventing her from ever claiming credit again. This is a non-disclosure violation agreement, Brennan explained. If you ever misrepresent the source of the fund again, Mr. Reynolds can pursue criminal charges with no statute of limitations. Karen's pen trembled. What about my position on the board? My business relationships? That's not Mr. Reynolds' problem, Brennan said flatly. You destroyed those yourself. I spoke for the first time in an hour. Karen, I'm not doing this for revenge. I'm doing it because my granddaughter deserves the truth about her community. Because my daughter deserves to know who really kept Willow Creek alive. And because no neighbor should have to watch another person steal credit for their generosity. Karen's voice was barely audible. I never meant for it to go this far. Yes, you did. You had dozens of opportunities to tell the truth. Instead, you borrowed against my money and used my love for this neighborhood to prop up your ego. Brennan slid another document forward. This is the repayment schedule. You have 30 days to liquidate assets to cover the $340,000. I don't have those assets, Karen admitted. Then you'll need to sell your house. The words hung heavy. The $890,000 McMansion she used to Project Success would now be sold to repay money she'd stolen by pretending to be me. What about the neighborhood? Karen asked weakly. Sarah and Mike will be fine, I said, because their real benefactor just came in at $55 million. I slid another set of papers across. I've established the new Reynolds Family Community Trust, transparent funding, clear beneficiaries, honest administration. Brennan nodded. It will handle all future upgrades, scholarships, and needs with full disclosure of the source. Karen looked utterly broken. So I lose everything. You never had anything to lose, I replied. Everything you've been living off for 3 years came from my fund. You were already broke. The only difference now is that everyone knows it. The final document was the public statement. Karen read it aloud in a dead voice. For the past 7 years, I have incorrectly accepted credit for financial contributions to Willow Creek Estates totaling $847,000. These contributions were actually funded by William Reynolds through the Enhancement Fund. I acknowledge that I used these misrepresentations to secure personal loans and that my actions constituted fraud. I apologize to the Reynolds family and to the entire community for this deception. The HOA newsletter publishes this Thursday, I said. The Denver Business Journal runs it Friday, and it goes on your LinkedIn immediately. This will destroy my reputation. Your reputation was built on a lie. I'm just giving you a chance to tell the truth. Brennan collected the signed papers. MS. Whitaker, you're fortunate, Mr. Reynolds is handling this civilly. The district attorney was prepared to file felony charges. Karen stood slowly. Bill, is there any way? No, my voice was final. You made your choices. For 7 years, you chose to take credit for love you didn't give. Now you get to live with the consequences. Then I did something she never expected. However, I added, there's one thing. Lily's 16th birthday is next month. If you want to give her a real gift, something that actually comes from your own money, you're welcome to attend the party. Karen's eyes filled with tears. You'd allow that? I'd allow you to be a neighbor again. The real one, who gives what she can afford, tells honest stories, and doesn't pretend to be something she's not. Karen nodded, defeated but maybe, just maybe, a little wiser. An hour later, I was sitting in my car outside Lily's school when my phone rang. "Grandpa Bill." Lily's voice was excited. "Mom told me about the new trust. Does this mean the neighborhood can have any upgrades we want?" "It means we can have any upgrades the community earns," I said. "And you'll really pay for them, Grandpa? I've been paying for everything your whole life. The only difference now is that you know it. I love you, Grandpa Bill." "I love you too, sweetheart." For the first time in 7 years, those words felt real. The social earthquake hit fast. By Thursday morning, Karen's confession was in 3 publications: the HOA newsletter, the Denver Business Journal, and somehow Channel 7 News picked it up. Local HOA president admits to 7-year financial deception, the anchor reported. Karen Whitaker publicly acknowledged taking credit for nearly $1 million in community improvements actually funded by fellow resident William Reynolds. My phone started ringing at 6 a.m. First call, the banker. "Bill, we've frozen all of Karen's accounts pending the fraud investigation. The FBI white-collar unit wants to interview you." Second, the club president. "Bill, I owe you a formal apology. Karen's deception was criminal. I've recommended she retain counsel." Third, Sarah's business partner. "Bill, I'm mortified we all bought into Karen's act. Is there anything I can do?" The consequences for Karen were immediate and brutal. The HOA board suspended her presidency pending review. 3 of her real estate partnerships dissolved within 48 hours. Her remaining clients terminated contracts. Might call me Tuesday afternoon. "Dad, Karen's house just went into foreclosure. The bank accelerated everything after the confession. She has 30 days to vacate. Where will she go? I don't know. She called yesterday, asking if she could borrow money for an apartment deposit." The irony was delicious. Karen Whitaker, who spent 7 years taking credit for my wealth, now begging her neighbors for basic housing. That evening, Sarah called with more news. "Dad, Lily's school called today. They wanted to verify the funding source for the new scholarship program." "What did you tell them?" "The truth, that her real grandfather has been paying all along." "How did they react?" The headmaster was embarrassed. Apparently, Karen had been taking credit there too, attending donor events, giving speeches about investing in education, accepting plaques for contributions she never made. Each new revelation layered on the deception. Karen hadn't just stolen credit inside the family. She'd built an entire public persona around my money. The Denver Business Journal followed up with a deeper investigation. Sources indicate Whitaker used false financial representations to secure multiple loans totaling over $300,000. Federal prosecutors are reviewing for potential wire fraud charges. By Friday, Karen's professional life was ashes, but the personal cost was higher. Lily came to see me Saturday morning at my new modest 2-bedroom. Nothing flashy, just comfortable, with a room for her when she visited. "Grandpa Bill, I need to ask you something." "Anything. Are you disappointed in us? For believing Karen instead of knowing the truth about you?" I sat beside her on the couch. "Lily, you were 13 when this started. How could you have known? Your mom and dad believed what they were told by someone they trusted. That's not their fault. It's Karen's for lying." She hugged me tight. "Will you forgive us?" "There's nothing to forgive. You loved me when you thought I was poor. That's the only thing that matters." Lily wiped her eyes. "I want to write Karen a letter, telling her lying to neighbors is wrong, but also that if she wants to be a real neighbor, I'll give her another chance." That's very mature. You learn that by watching forgiveness in action. 2 weeks later, the FBI Financial Crimes Unit called. Karen was being indicted on federal fraud charges. The interstate banking on her loans made it federal. When the agent asked if I wanted to file additional charges for identity theft and financial fraud, I said no. "Why not, Mr. Reynolds?" "Because she's already lost everything that mattered. Her reputation, her board seat, her home, her business. Prison won't teach her anything she hasn't already learned the hard way. You're more forgiving than most fraud victims." "I'm not forgiving her. I'm choosing not to destroy her completely." There's a difference. Karen received 3 years probation and 500 hours of community service. She now works at a nonprofit helping seniors avoid financial scams. The irony was almost too perfect. 6 months later, Lily's 16th birthday party was everything it should have been. Small gathering, close neighbors, honest relationships. Karen came. She brought a gift she'd actually paid for herself. A $30 Barnes & Noble gift card and a handwritten note apologizing for the lies and promising to do better. Lily hugged her and said, "Thank you for telling the truth, Karen." That simple exchange meant more than 7 years of expensive upgrades she never actually funded. Sarah and I have rebuilt our relationship completely. She visits twice a week now, and we talk about everything, including money. She understands that wealth without honesty is meaningless and that love without recognition is worthless. Mike transferred departments at the management company to avoid any appearance of impropriety. He still jokes that none of his other clients are quite as mysterious as his father-in-law. As for me, I moved into the modest 3-bedroom where Lily can bring friends and Sarah never feels like she's visiting a charity case. I kept the old 2009 Civic. Runs fine, and I've grown attached to the duct tape. The lottery money went into investments and philanthropy. I established the Reynolds Foundation for Cancer Research, named after my wife. Lily helps review grant applications, but the most important change is this. My family knows who I am now. Not the poor dad who needed pity. Not the secret benefactor who bought their love. Just Bill Reynolds, a man who worked hard, saved quietly, and chose to spend it on the people and neighborhood he loved. Lily asked me recently why I hid my wealth so long. Because I wanted to know if you'd love me without it. I told her. And now you know. Now I know, she smiled. The truth is that $2 lottery ticket was the best gift Karen ever gave me. Not because of the money, but because it forced the truth to surface. Sometimes the smallest gestures reveal the biggest lies. And sometimes the biggest lies, once exposed, clear the way for the most honest relationships. If you've ever felt invisible in your own neighborhood story, I want you to know something. Your generosity matters even when it's not acknowledged. Especially when it's not acknowledged. But don't wait 7 years to set the record straight. Truth delayed is often truth destroyed. Some battles are worth fighting, and the battle for recognition of your real contributions is one of them. The end.